afternoon to you all. You're very welcome to our session this afternoon on media literacy for marginalised communities. My name is Sally Reynolds from the Media Learning Association, and I'm really delighted to be moderating this session this afternoon, which we are organising together with the Deutsche Welle Academy. And I will be joined in a few minutes by Patricia Noboa Armendariz, who is going to be the co-moderator for the session this afternoon. This session is, of course, part of the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Week, which we are delighted to be part of this week, and hope that you're also enjoying it and finding an opportunity to hear lots about what's going on with media literacy around the globe. You can also follow, of course, the hashtag, and I think that's a useful thing to do, the Global Mill Week, to follow on the activities. So just before we start, a couple of little bits of housekeeping for our session this afternoon. We are recording the session, as you can see, and my colleague Chloe will be sharing the recording publicly on our YouTube channel in about 10 days' time. And we'll also make available to everyone who's registered the presentations where we can share them from our presenters this afternoon. We'd like to ask you to please keep your cameras on if you can, because it's lovely for us all to see the faces of people joining us this afternoon, but of course your microphone's off to make sure that we don't have any sound interference. We're also going to use the chat quite a lot during the session this afternoon, so feel free to put your questions, comments, any useful links that you find, any resources, feel free to use the chat for that purpose. We'd also like to ask you if you could just take a moment to adjust your name in order to indicate the name of the organization that you're joining us from and also your country. It's always nice to know where people are joining us from for these sessions. And to do that, you just click on the participants list at the bottom of the screen. You click on your name and you'll find 3 little dots. And if you click on those, you have the option to rename yourself. And it's very nice to do that. So if you could take a few minutes to do that, we'd be really grateful for the session this afternoon. So before I hand over to Patricia or maybe I'll hand over to Patricia to introduce herself first and Deutsche Welle Academy. Patricia.
Hello, Sally. Welcome, everyone. Also from my side, exactly. First of all, I'm very happy to join Sally in the co-moderation of this session. My name is Patricia Noboa Armendariz. I'm an Ecuadorian journalist and media consultant working on MIL and analyzing disinformation, mainly in the Global South. And I'm representing DW Academy. We're co-hosting this event with Media and Learning, and we're very, very happy to start this session. We're part of Deutsche Welle, the German public international broadcaster. We're a media development organization strengthening freedom of expression, and together with our partners around the world, we've been bringing MIL into practice on media for over the past 10 years, and as an approach to strengthen free media systems, to setting standards for education and also for independent journalism. As Sally said, we're talking about MIL best practices to foster inclusion and engagement with specific groups such as indigenous populations, rural communities, underserved youth, and individuals with learning disabilities. I'm very excited. But before introducing to our experts today, Sally will guide us through our agenda and also the interaction dynamics. Sally.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Yes, indeed, we're going to have 4 quite short presentations. We have some really interesting speakers lined up for the session this afternoon. Each of them is going to speak for about 8 or 9 minutes. So we will start with Pablo Cruz joining us from Guatemala, then Hania Bitar coming from the occupied Palestinian territories, followed by Hugo Besançon from Square in France, and then Rachel Nimulitete from Namibia. So each of our presenters are going to take about 8 or 10 minutes to give you an overview of the work that they are doing with marginalised communities. And then we're going to move into breakout rooms. So I'm going to moderate one with Hugo and Hania, and Patricia is going to moderate the other with Pablo and Rachel. And in these sessions, you will have more of an opportunity to ask questions from our presenters, but also a chance to discuss the work that they're doing and to see how it can be adjusted, how it can be used in other situations across the globe. Then we'll come back at about 3:15. We expect to have a final discussion to kind of pick up on the threads from the 2 groups and ask questions, and then we plan to finish about 3:25, closing completely at 3:30 local time here in Central Europe. So that's the plan. I hope you're going to stay with us and enjoy enjoy the session. Please participate fully. Make sure that you have any questions, any points you want to raise, put them in the chat. Patricia and I will be keeping a very close watch on that, and we'll make sure that all points raised are put forward to our speakers this afternoon. I'll start, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker for the afternoon, and I'm delighted to welcome, all the way from Guatemala, Pablo Cruz, who's the audiovisual producer with Comunicares. So, Pablo, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Let me share my screen. Give me a second.
No problem, Pablo.
Okay.
Yes, now we
Great.
see the screen. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Pablo, yes, you're good to go.
So, my name is Pablo. I'm from Comunicares, from Guatemala, Central America. And I want to share with you the project that we're working on that is El algoritmo a mi ritmo. In English, that would be the algorithm at my rhythm. I love the name because it means what you know it means. The algorithm goes at my rhythm. I decide what to do with the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't decide what I do. But also, if you see el algoritmo a mi ritmo, at my is a mi, which in Spanish is also the letters for MIL, for Media Information Literacy. So it's a play on words there. And what is it? Okay, we started with an exploratory survey that wanted to identify different information bits from our communities. We wanted to collect information of interest for the community of practice. We wanted to have target audiences reflect on how algorithms impact their daily lives. And we also wanted to algorithmically educate our target audiences with different training ways. And what does the algorithm at my rhythm consist of? A qualitative exploration, which I mentioned. It was an exploratory survey. We worked with different communities to gather this information. Relevant and friendly meal methodologies on algorithm. We wanted to share different media sources and different ways of communication with the community to educate in the algorithm and media information literacy, and campaigns and materials that educate and disturb. Magazine, videos, and podcasts. We work with different media kinds. So what do we find in this exploration? First of all, we ask, what do you think? Who do you think chooses the content that appears on your social networks? Some people, or a bit over a quarter of the people in the survey, said that they were the ones choosing what appears in their social networks. Some people said it was an artificial intelligence. Some people said that it was a private company. Nobody chooses, it's just luck. Someone in charge of the social media, and a government, a private government. So there's a lot of ignorance about how algorithms work in social media. Do you think the internet tends to favor some content more than others? Most people say yes. So this was good because there's conscience about biases in the internet. And where does most of the content on your social media come from? Most people say that they consume content from other countries. Some people that live in a specific department in Guatemala say that they watch content from their department. Some people say that they watch content from the rest of the country, and most people of this area say that they watch content from the city, from the capital city in Guatemala. But the vast majority is content from other countries. So that says something about how they're perceiving reality based on the content that they're watching. They're not watching local content. What's an algorithm? Most people doesn't know, or they give erroneous concepts. And a big chunk of people answered something related to logarithms. because there's a confusion in the word. They hear algorithm and they think it's a mathematical concept. So there's a lot of ignorance there. How can I change the content that digital platforms offer to other people? So do I have the power to change what other people see? Most people didn't know. Some people said a couple of things that work, but most people, 97.5%, didn't know. And what is an artificial intelligence? Most people doesn't know or give wrong answers. This is part of the content that we generated for this campaign. This is a video, it's 1 minute, it's in Spanish, but I'll give like the basic concepts once the video is over.
No vemos personas indígenas en Internet.
Cuando buscamos en Internet videos o imágenes de hombre feliz o mujer exitosa,
O cuando las redes sociales nos recomiendan contenido para que consumamos.
y a menos de que busquemos específicamente, es muy difícil que nos aparezca voces, rostros y experiencias de personas indígenas en Internet.
¿Te has preguntado por qué pasa esto?
Porque los algoritmos de los motores de búsquedas favorecen a las entidades, a las empresas y los gobiernos más grandes.
Y generalmente estas entidades publican contenido útiles para ellos, para sus intereses, ideologías, prioridades y parámetros de cómo debería ser la realidad.
Tú y yo no podemos cambiar la forma en la que los grandes algoritmos operan.
Pero sí podemos entender cómo funcionan y no aceptar los resultados sin antes analizar de dónde vienen.
Está claro, por ejemplo, una mujer indígena puede ser una mujer exitosa. Que Internet no lo muestre es otra historia.
No normalicemos ni creamos todo lo que encontramos en Internet.
Yo analizo y uso el algoritmo a mi ritmo.
So the basis of this video was about the white stereotypes, and that we do not find indigenous people in internet. When we make Google searches or searches in other search engines, we do not find indigenous people represented, and that when we want to look for positive concepts like happy people, productive people, successful people, we only see white people in the results. We do not see indigenous people present in this algorithm of results, and that we wanted to stop normalizing that and to be conscious about what we found. The ending of the video was, we cannot change what the search engines show us, but we can change how we perceive that and how we normalize that and how we understand what we are shown in the search engines. This is one part of the whole campaign. We also talk about how we do not find examples of LGBT people, of women, of people of color. And we also have another part of the content that is about educating on how what is an algorithm and how does it work. If you want to scan this QR code, you can find and we can also share the link in the chat then later. But this is the magazine of the algorithm at my rhythm. It is in Spanish, unfortunately, but it has all of the work that we have been making in this. It has links to videos and podcasts about the work we're doing here in Guatemala and how are we approaching the algorithm literacy. So that's all I wanted to share, and I hope I didn't go way too past my time.
Not at all, Pablo. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to Patricia now to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you very much, Pablo, for this very exciting project you have been implementing in Guatemala, in Central America, with indigenous communities. Let's go to the other side of the world, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Hania Vitar. Hania Vitar is the founder and director general of the Palestinian Youth Association for Leadership and Rights Activation, PIALARA. We're very happy to have you here, Hania. Are you ready? Over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, everybody, for deciding to join us today in this session. Despite, I know everybody has their own burdens and responsibilities, but it's good to spend some time together. In fact, the topic of this session, I think, is very interesting and very important because it talks about marginalized individuals or groups or communities. And as we know, marginalized people are those actually who are alienated or driven away from being active or active participants in the different walks of life, be it social, cultural, political, economic. And those people actually can't have, for different reasons, the access to resources and to basic services. And thus, they are people or groups or individuals who are being discriminated against. In fact, actually, people can be marginalized either because economically they are marginalized, they can be poor, they can be, as we said, restricted or don't have access to resources, so they don't have the sufficient education, can't be part of the employment force sufficiently. They can be physically or mentally marginalized because of being handicapped or other reasons. They can be actually politically marginalized, and those we see in different parts of the world, either because, like in Palestine, they are refugees, or because they live in certain geographic areas, like in Palestine, it's divided into West Bank, Gaza Strip. Even in the West Bank, it's areas C and B and A. So depending where you live, you can be marginalized. People can be marginalized socially, like in Palestine and many parts of the world. Women are a group that are being marginalized. And in certain parts, for example, in Palestine as well, we have actually also the homosexuals who are being marginalized. We have the Bedouin communities who are being marginalized. Actually, so you see lots of groups. Also, there are for religious reasons, people could be marginalized, but I don't believe in Palestine this exists. We have almost 1.5% of the population are Christians, like myself, but we don't feel as a marginalized group. At Pialara, at the Palestinian Youth Association for Leadership and Rights Activation, part of our mission is actually to give a voice to the voiceless, to marginalized youth, to marginalized women, to people who are really like living as underdogs. And what I will share with you today, actually, one concrete example on how we worked with a marginalized group of people to give them a voice. And this group of people belong to the women community in Palestine, which is part of almost women compose 49% of the population. But unfortunately, despite being almost half of the population, women are underprivileged and their political participation is minimal. Their participation in let's say chambers of commerce is less than 1%. Participation in election is less than 19%. Despite all the laws and regulations that are being put in order to encourage their participation. So in Palestine, as in many other communities, we have lots of violence being practiced against women. Almost 11% of women have been subjected to violence. And in fact, the reasons why women are subjected to violence can go back because of customs and traditions, because of being a parental society where men have the say and have to take decisions, being part of, we have been for, we were born under Israeli occupation, many of the young generations. So despite being subjected to the violence of Israeli occupation, the last year, everybody has been following what has happened since October 7th. So it's not just violence, it's not just occupation, now it's genocide that we are being subjected to, especially in Gaza Strip. Also, and women, of course, pay a high price because almost 17,000 women have been actually killed in this since October 7th. also, our Palestinian laws and regulations still are actually are not pro women's rights. And so this is why we decided at my organization that we should give a voice to a group of women who get killed for different reasons. So we are giving a voice to women who are killed for either they are under they call it honor killing in Palestine. I will share with you this short video, and then we will comment on it to see how we use media and information literacy in order to give a voice to almost a group of women who get killed on a yearly basis for different excuses and reasons. Go ahead, please, with the video.
أنا طفلة عمري 21 سنة، كسر لي ضلوعي وهشم جمجمتي، كان ينزل فيا ضرب لحتى ما أقدر أوقف على حالي.
كثير تأثرت فيه إنه قصة البنت اللي أصلاً أخوها يعني هي طفلة صغيرة تم الاعتداء عليها بسن كثير صغير، ولما صار في بيبي بالموضوع أخوها قتلها اللي اعتدى عليها.
أنا أول ما سمعت القصة حسيت بالخوف، حسيت بالتوتر، توترت، خفت.
شعرت بالحزن إنه كيف نساء كثير هيك بتعنفوا في المجتمع، ما فيش حدا بيقف معهم، أمرار بيكون السبب الرئيسي إنها تتعنف المرأة إنه الأهل.
أنا بصراحة لما شفت التوابيت يعني قلت أكيد في عبرة أو في هدف من التوابيت هذه. مثلا على سبيل المثال سمعت قصة إنه في شاب مثلا متجوز وبتعاطى حبوب، ومن كلام هذا الإشي أثر سلبياً ضد المرأة وضد أولادها.
سماعات لما طلعت من جوا التابوت وكأنه الميت اللي جوا التابوت هو اللي قاعد بيعبر وبيحكي. فكثير فكرة رائعة كثير، ويا ريت هاي الفكرة تصل لكل العالم، لكل الناس، مشان الناس كلها تشوف هذول اللي بيعملوا الجرائم، والناس اللي ما عندهم مش ذمة ولا ضمير ولا هم يعني في عندهم جنس الإنسانية ولا ذرة من الإنسانية حتى هم.
توعية النساء انهم ما يسكتوا عن اي عنف بتعرضوا له، حتى لو الاشي شوي صعب، انه المرأة مش بسهولة بترفض، ومش بسهولة ممكن تطلع تحكي عن اي عنف بصير معها، لانه هذا الاشي كتير بنعرف قديش بشكل خطر اصلا على حياتها وضرر، بس احنا عم نحاول نعطي افضل الطرق، عم نساعدها تكون اقوى.
يجب انه يتم وضع قانون لهدول المجرمين اللي عم بيقتلوا بالنساء.
لكل مرأة بتتعرض لعنف أو بتتعرض لأي إشي هي بتكون مش راضية عنه، ما تسكت عن حقها.
بدل ما تكون ضد بنتك كون مع بنتك، لأنه مش أنت اللي عايش دور الضحية، مش أنت اللي كل يوم تنقتل قتلة من زوجها.
I don't know how much you understood from the video, but actually 2 years ago, the number of women who were killed under the excuse of honor killing amounted to almost 57 women. Now, those women, we know that a family member, a cousin, an uncle, a brother, a father have killed them either because those women dared to fall in love or have a sexual relationship without being married, or they refused to succumb, you know, because sometimes with inheritance, women don't want, men don't want women to inherit. So they would kill them and in order not to get their due inheritance. And of course, or a woman might be like very outgoing. She might go out without wearing the scarf and this will cause shame to her family. People will defame her and say, wow, she's very liberal, so her brother would kill her. The real problem is that none, like I said, in 2021, 2022, 57 women were killed. You don't get a real investigation in the cases to say that those women were killed. Who is the killer? Has he been sentenced? Has he been imprisoned? So you get excuses, they will say, they committed suicide, or they fell from above the building, or they shot themselves while cleaning a gun or playing with a gun. So you get so many stupid excuses, and the people agree to those excuses, and you see the story finishes. So those women fall victim and they pay with their own lives, and then nobody is pursuing the truth. So we decided that we should give a voice to those women. And this is why we selected a number of the stories of those killed women. And we asked university students, young people, to go and research and dig out and go to the family members, bring the stories of those women, and then we recorded them. So we used media, so we recorded the stories in the voices of women, and we put the tapes inside coffins. So we made a number of coffins, each story with a coffin, in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip prior to October 7th. So also we had coffins in Gaza, and with each coffin, there people would come and they would put the headphone and they would listen to the woman narrating her story, telling how she was living, what happened to her, why she was killed. And of course, we had psychologists outside where we placed the coffins, because as you saw, some women were so much affected, they would cry. Actually, one woman fainted, because, this will relate to stories that either they have been subjected to, or a neighbor or someone they know. And so we had psychological aid available, but at the same time, this became something in the news, because usually in our media, they will report it as a short story. A woman died or fell from the top of a building or committed suicide. So our stories and the people we brought them live. We brought those women back to life. And so we have been doing this actually in different areas, on campuses, in the streets, in public areas, in remote areas, to make people listen to the voices of those women who fell victim. Now,
Thank you so much.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's so valuable, the stories that you are sharing, and also how you're also taking that to the media. We are already a couple of minutes over the time. I'd like to ask if there's something else you would like to share on the project, but we will get closer and deeper also in the breakout rooms. Yeah, thank you very much to Hania.
You're welcome.
Sharing from Pia Lara. We have a very lively chat. Thank you so much. People from India, from Argentina, from Armenia, from South Africa, Portugal, Greece, and Uganda are sending messages. Please be with us. We also have one message of someone that is maybe not able to listen to us. We hope that for you all, the audio is working. And we will turn over to the next expert. Hania, thanks a lot for sharing this. We'll be getting deeper and closer also to the stories in Palestine. Sally, we have another expert today.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Indeed, yeah, I think that's just a bot that's having a problem listening to us, but I think the rest of us are hearing fine, so don't worry. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, next presenter, and that's Hugo Besançon. He's a Deputy General Manager with Square, which is based here in France, and he's going to talk about the work that Square is doing with marginalized communities. Hugo.
Thanks, Sally. So let me just share my screen as well. All right. while this loads, I would just want to say, Rania, I must applaud your initiative because violence against women is unfortunately too widespread around the world and in France as well. And this is something that comes up often during our sessions. And, you know, empathy is a key point in bringing the stories and thinking differently and perhaps evolving there. So I work with an organization that's called Square. We are a French NGO that works with schools, NGOs, other NGOs and researchers. We do media literacy workshops with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds in and around Paris and sometimes other French cities. We discuss our social media work and we talk about trends that the kids and the young participants see and are affected by. Given the specificities of the audience we work with, we also do some work on their perception of elites and their place in society. More simply put, this means we work on empathy and expanding worldviews, understanding others and other ideas. Because there's something about our participants is that they are often convinced that they know everything, that they see everything on social media, or at least that they could do so. And it is a big step to realize that this isn't the case and that others might see things differently. We also support them in developing critical thinking skills to resist any manipulation that they might encounter online. So this ranges from scams to false information, also including techniques such as scapegoating, decontextualization, or anecdotal evidence. We have a big research component as well, where we verify and test the extent of the exposure of misinformation of our audience and the effects of our workshops, because there's lots of talk about what vulnerable and marginalized audiences see and are victims of, but there's often too little evidence of the realities of what they actually see and live, and we do some work to change that. Our participants, they are tested using various scales and questionnaires, as well as observation from experts. This happens before and after every session, and we are currently trialing more long-term analysis where we can. We believe that evaluation practices in media literacy education are too limited for now. And there's a lot of, we do this because we think it works without any measurable proof. And so we aim to contribute in any way we can to spreading techniques and tools that can that have been tested that can help others. So in terms of workshop, we do combine active learning techniques with real-world examples of online manipulation and content creation. So we work with an audience that doesn't fit what we call the traditional academic standards, even when we work in schools. If I were doing a workshop with them right now, talking about concepts like I am doing, I would face, blank stares in the best case, actually, and more likely participants scrolling through their phones or simply people tuning out and outright leaving the session. So this is why we try to work with examples that interest them and that they talk about and that, they have seen before. So we have a bank of examples like the ones I've put on the screen, but we also use some technology to actually involve them during the session and have them access to sharing tools where we can see what they have on their phone and they can share with us images or examples that we can discuss directly. One of my roles is actually creating the educational materials we work with. So I work using the 4 principles you're seeing on the screen. So we use pre-banking, which is using real-world examples tailored with and for the participants. We work a lot on creating activities that foster empathy and discuss our biases and social constructs. This means that we actually create context where they react and are sort of, trapped to realize what just happened. So it can be as simply done simply by showing a picture of a person on screen and asking them what they think that this person does or is or wishes. And we can then discuss stereotypes, but it can also be more complex activities where we put them in a situation and they have to act out. I try as much as I can to have them in situations that they are criticizing, which means that they are now the leaders and they are now in charge of fixing issues they see online or feel strongly about. This reverses the situation and actually it keeps them grounded, because we often ask them, what would you do if, what would you tell your little brother or sister in case you face this situation? Or how would you prevent it? And this works actually much better than when you ask them about it directly. As mentioned, we put in a lot of work in monitoring and evaluating what we do, mostly because we want to update what we propose to the kids when things don't work and push things that actually work well. I have more comprehensive impact reports on our website, which I will be linking at the end of this presentation. On the top right corner, you can see that our population has a high level of distrust towards pretty much everybody. And this is compared to the national average in France. This is also why we avoid, true false statement or any government pushed standards. There is this major paradox that I always like to bring up, in that 90% of the participants we have, they get their information from social media, and yet they are 84% being skeptical of its reliability. This is a key point for us because our audience is perhaps less vulnerable than initially we'd expect. They have a tendency to not trust what they see and to admit that they don't know, a lot more than we often think. And despite all of that, they are still over 50% to prioritize their personal opinions over evidence, which means that we have still a lot of work to do on anecdotal proof. On the bottom right corner, you can see some results in terms of knowledge items. There we see often very good improvements, especially on the long-term basis. And I've also added on the bottom left corner a very interesting piece of feedback regarding the engagement levels of the participants of our workshops. We believe that by being involved in the session and by being actors themselves, they actually become more keen in taking part in the fight. As you can see, we have participants that are interested in getting involved into fighting against disinformation, which frankly, for me, it's unbelievable because their initial motivation levels are very, very low when we go into a workshop. And a final tidbit before I give back the floor, just to give you some context on the scope of what we do and the key importance that partnerships with proper organization does. So the project I'm talking about has been supported by Google.org and other media literacy and critical thinking funds. This gives us some flexibility that is needed to build trust with the participants. It's essential when you deal with, marginalized audiences in France, that besides always adapting the materials you offer and the content that you show, that you have access to partners that have the trust of the audience beforehand. This helps create the necessary setting for a good workshop. And so our participants, they come from different backgrounds. As you can see, we work with schools, but also with social work organization. We've also worked on more international sessions as part of a European consortium in Italy, France, and Spain. This all obviously means different context and time frames for the sessions and the contents that we show. And this shows that we need to be extremely flexible as an organization. And I will finish by saying that building trust with organizations that know and understand the audience well and can help introduce us goes a very long way to facilitating exchanges and learning, and also sharing best practices and tools, which I'm glad that we get a chance to do today. Thanks. That's it for me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hugo, for an excellent presentation. I think we'd really appreciate you sharing the resources that you mentioned into the chat. That'd be really nice if you could do that, because I think particularly the impact, everybody has to prove their impact. It's a challenge that we all face. So being able to look at your figures is really, really helpful, and some very surprising in there as well too. Patricia, over to you for our final speaker.
Yes, and we're getting impressive pictures from Pialara, from an escape room, also from an interactive center to share pictures, some also human stories as those that we've been getting closer today. So I'm going to introduce you to our last speaker, Rachel Nimulitete. She's a facilitator and radio presenter from the Media and Information Literacy Initiative, MILI, in Namibia. She's going to talk about empowering women, youth, and rural populations. Over to you. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and everybody. Really inspired by all your presentations, all the speakers before me. Very wonderful initiatives, really. So I am a media and information literacy trainer and facilitator from MILI. So we train young people how to read and write media messages. So just a little bit about MILI. So the MILI Trust is a nonprofit initiative that aims to foster media and information literacy in youth in Namibia. MILI aims to build capacities of youth through its innovative expert educational products in the media and information literacy area. So we have youth projects, summer school, and the certificate course in MIL. MILI relies mostly on partnerships for institutional and project funding for its activities, and our main donor currently is DW Academy. So the first offering that we give as MILI is the MILI Summer School. So the MILI Summer School usually runs between June and July, and it's 2 weeks. So through MILI Summer School, we get young people from different regions in Namibia, and we train them on media and information literacy using different mediums such as sound and music, photography, videography, radio, and so forth. So what we do with this is we train them on how to read and write media messages using one of the following mediums. And then after those 2 weeks, they then go out to their regions, where mostly they're from marginalized communities, the villages, very far away from the central capital city, Windhoek. And then they go and train other young people on media and information literacy in the modules that they were trained in. And I think it's also a great initiative because we have currently in Namibia, we have more than 30% unemployment. And so when these facilitators come from summer school, they get paid to go and train and empower other young people within our communities, which we have seen that there's a great appreciation for this, because not only are these young people marginalized in terms of unemployment and their backgrounds, but then through this program, we give them the proper skills to empower themselves and also gain even if it's just a little bit amount of money that they can use to empower themselves. We then also have these youth projects that I was talking about within the regions. And this is really to make sure that we reach as many people as possible through these facilitators that come from summer school. And then lastly, we also have the MILI approach for empowerment, the certificate course. Now, the certificate course is the higher level of training that you can get from MILI. So participants gain credit points to become MIL educators. And then when they become educators, they can create their own manuals or their own form of educational material that they can implement themselves and gain funding to implement these projects. So this is to gain, to reach a wider audience and enhance the quality of education in MIL. And I think even more importantly, there are young people out there who have brilliant ideas on how to empower young people through MIL. So through the certificate course, they can tailor make their own initiatives to empower their communities. I don't know whether, okay. So why do we focus on marginalized communities? So I think it's also important to note that we focus more on young people, but also we do focus on women. And mostly with women is that they face limited access to education and information, impacting their socio-economic participation and decision-making. And then young people require skills to navigate and interpret the vast amounts of information they encounter daily, especially in the digital age. And in Namibia, we have 70% of young people, of our population is young people. And I think that even stresses more why our main focus is on these marginalized young people. Rural populations also frequently lack access to media and information resources, creating an information divide, especially in the villages. And then, so the current achievements that we have had as MILI is we have reached all regions in Namibia. We have 14 regions in Namibia, and all these regions have been in some way trained in media and information literacy through these MILI facilitators that we have coming through summer school. We have trained over 200 facilitators, and these facilitators then went back in their communities and trained other young people. So the challenges that we face in training these marginalized communities is the limited access to quality education and resources. So in April 2020, government enforced an e-learning country-wide due to the pandemic. And then we have found that 30% of schools do not have access to technology that is necessary for them to participate in e-learning, for example. So these are some of the challenges that we face when we are training young people in the field. And we try as facilitators to always come with our cell phones so that when we train these young people, they can use our cell phones and computers to learn how to use them and also participate in the activities. We also have a lack of employment opportunities and high cost of data and cell phones. And therefore, even when we do train these young people on media and information literacy, they are often not able to practice because data, which then would take them on the internet, is very expensive, and also cell phones. We also have poor infrastructure, roads, transport, and communication networks, and also a language barrier. So our facilitators train in English mainly, and our modules are in English, but sometimes we have a lot of different languages here in Namibia, and so it's not always that there is a facilitator able to speak one of those languages, but we try as much as possible to make sure that we send facilitators to go train who can speak the native language in case of translation necessary. So here are some important statistics in respective to Namibia. The 2020 Inclusive Internet Index, which assesses internet availability, affordability, relevance of content, and readiness, ranked Namibia 84th out of 100 countries with a score of 41.2% of availability and 54.8 for affordability indicators, respectively. Now, also according to ITU, as of June 2018, internet users in Namibia were 36.8 in comparison to 14.8% in 2014. And I think this stresses just how fast young people and even the Namibian population is using the internet, and therefore there is a need for us to teach media and information literacy at an even faster pace. As of early 2021, significant achievements in mobile network coverage were reported. The country has seen a remarkable increase in 3G and LTE infrastructure, with 3G covering 89% and LTE 79% of the population. So in conclusion, this is just a brief of what we do as the Media and Information Literacy Learning Initiative. We have been in existence ever since 2016 and currently still going strong. So Milli's initiative empowers marginalized communities by providing them tools to access, understand, and utilize media efficiently. By focusing on women, youth, and rural communities and populations, Milli supports an inclusive approach to media literacy, fostering informed and engaged and resilient communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing this wonderful initiative, reaching all the country, the 14 regions in Namibia. We're getting some questions here. Thank you so much for all people who were posting the questions. We're getting back to them. But first of all, Sally will take us to the next dimension.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you very much, Patricia. I'd love to be taking everyone to the next dimension, but instead of which, we're going to take them into the breakout rooms. So we're going to take about 20 minutes in the breakout rooms. So I'm going to go into one, and I'll have Hania with me and also Hugo. So you can choose to join that one, or you can join Patricia's room with Pablo and Rachel. And I see some specific questions coming in actually for, I think, particularly for Rachel. So maybe you could pick them up in the breakout room, Patricia. That would be great.
We will do so.
Great. And we'll see everybody back then in the, indeed, we can see everybody back afterwards so we can do a roundup. And we've also got a couple of things we want to share with you as well, and some links and some resources. So Chloe is going to wave her magic wand and we will have our breakout choice and see you all there. It'll take a few minutes till everybody gets where they need to be.
Stay on here with us. Prepare your questions, also your materials. If there's something you also want to share from your organization, some materials. This is a practitioner's group. Yeah, we'll be taking already. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. I think we have a QR code, and this is the QR code that Dovi would like us and Patricia would like us to open. Patricia, maybe you just introduce this to everybody if you're back.
I am back. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, everyone, for this very active conversation. We'll be sharing now this code, but you also have a link that Chloe just posted in the chat. Please join us in the Mentimeter. We would like to know what could you apply to your work from this conversation, this last conversation, but also from this inputs we just heard at the beginning. How inspiring were they? How the reflections are they, are you able to apply those thoughts, those recommendations? Share 3 words with us, answering to this question on your phone or also at the computer. Let us know if you are getting it. I see already people that are connected. And I'm also going to share my screen while we can also report on what has been said in the breakout rooms. Yes, we're getting them. Empathy, humanity. We also have games, escape room, boldness.
Right.
Add materials.
Shall I, as that's happening, shall I give a quick summary of the discussion that we had, Patricia?
Let's start with that, yes.
Yeah, okay. In our room, actually, we did a first round just to see who was there in the room, and it was nice to hear who everybody was and what they were doing. And then we focused initially, we spoke with, Hania spoke about their work and the position of their work at the moment and the status of the work in Palestine. And they're also sharing with us, I think you could also share in this in this chat as well, maybe, Hania, also the information about the digital village that you're setting up and the project as it's going forward, because I think everybody would like to follow that and to support where we can. And then there was a discussion, particularly with Hugo, in terms of how do you engage people into the sessions. We did speak about this use of the term marginalised very briefly, and as he said, we never use the term marginalised. So I think that's an answer to just the question earlier about terminology. And the way that they engage people is just by making sure they work with organizations that are really active with their target audience. They make sure that the methodologies that they use are relevant and appropriate. They don't speak any more than 10 minutes at a time without changing the activity. They're very busy in terms of the work that they do. And we also had a little bit of exchange as well with people, just with direct mails, just if anybody wanted to follow up directly. Hugo, Hania, is that kind of it that we covered in our room? Hugo, yeah, nodding. Hania, anything we missed? I'm missing? Okay. Then Patricia, over to you for your room.
Thank you, Sally. We started talking about some similarities, about the context between Guatemala and also Namibia. They're completely in the opposite side of the world, but there are some similarities. First, Pablo and Rachel were sharing that indigenous youth are often ashamed to use their own language, their local language on social media, but this can change also depending on the approach, how they get closer to them, and this is also changing. They rely on formats like audio formats, and also safe spaces for them to be able to create their own content. And people are actually celebrating their cultures more. That's what Rachel literally said. And this is slowly changing. I also connect this back to how MIL can empower communities, how specific groups can be, through MIL, have a positive impact that is well intended behind. We were also talking about that no training process or empowering process works out with a one visit intervention, so to say. So it is very key to think of steps. They were sharing, for instance, two-step processes of the way how Guatemala works with digital training first, and then on-site activities, hands-on with youth, also making them participate in the media landscape. But also, Rachel mentioned, it depends strongly on the type of the call. How do you do that? Do as many visits as possible, but make the call also attractive. Collaboration and partnerships was also a topic. This is for both organizations, the main source of conducting projects and initiatives is donor funding, not only for activities, but also for institutional strengthening. But it is also very key for them to develop, on the other side, methods and partnerships that are adequate to the sensitive crisis context, but also to make it fun. Games have shown to be effective. That's what both said. So youth and indigenous people, local people, can remember easily also the lessons learned. Visualizations are also very important, and also to rely on local facilitators, people that speak the local language and can not only be the gatekeepers, but also keep the process alive. And finally, what Pablo also shared, is important to draw a baseline. How do you meet these groups of people and then build up methods to monitor the evolution of their competencies and also to evaluate the impact. This is also a way how these methods can be adapted to other contexts. I don't know if I'm missing something. Rachel, Pablo, do add if there's something important you want to mention.
No, it was a really well done explanation of everything. Nice.
Sounded comprehensive to me as well. I wanted to pick up just before, because we're going to run out of time very soon, and there was a question which I promised we'd come back to ages ago, and that was from Shalina. And she wanted us to ask all of the speakers today about, what do you do when people have lost trust, even in fact-checked sites, that people are more and more familiar with, okay, I can go to such and such a news site, and I know it's been fact-checked, but they don't go. Any suggestions or tips or anything you found to kind of reinstate trust in certain media outlets? Hugo, that's something that you tackled at all? I know you said 90% of your participants are going, or your target audience are going to social media sites, but there are good social media sites and bad ones, as we know. So what do you do?
Yeah, well, this is something that comes up a lot. We actually discuss, we try to avoid as much as possible talking about truth or false, and we try to have them actually come to a conclusion of what they'd like to see or what they'd like to check. So we obviously give them some sources they can go to, where obviously these sources can be wrong, but if they were wrong, they would actually tell them that they were wrong and explain why and what has changed. So we give them some tips, but the gist of it is actually we try to have them, as much as possible, forging their own opinions and the way they want to look for things, and realize that sometimes, you can see things and it's not that bad if you don't know if it's true or false. But sometimes other pieces of information are more important to actually fact check. And there you can do the work that we are doing in a workshop. So, analysis, trying to compare to other stuff, trying to see if people you trust, so they are very keen on influencers. There are some that are better than others, but it's, an opinion based in the end. So try to recoup, try to see if others are saying the same thing, people that think like you are saying the same thing, or if you're seeing different discourses, why, and, we can also discuss it within the workshop. But yeah, that's the gist of it for me.
And it works. Hania.
Yeah, I think this is a very important question, in fact. And I think, like, for example, in our context in Palestine, we have so many challenges. Like, for example, we have some very good fact-checking sites, and we can visit them and you can get the truth. But of course, you get it after a while, not on the same spot, not at the same moment. Now, but you have to also look at who is visiting such sites. We have been raising the awareness of young people about the importance of verifying information, trying to check with credible sources. But at the same time, we found out that especially with young people and regular people, they don't have the patience. They want things on the spot. So this is why cultivating critical thinking, double check, think on your own, think if this is logical or not. Go back to the history of blah, 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 so that because really people don't have the patience. And so usually after things happen, you read, this was the truth of the matter, this was not right, this was really fabricated news. Now, the other thing is that how much people are losing faith and credibility in the formal channels who are giving news. Like in our case, we have so much misinformation from our own Palestinian Authority, but also from Israel and from the international community. So if you take, for example, people in Gaza, when they are asked to evacuate certain places, evacuate the north and go to the south because we will bomb the north and it's safer for you to go to the south. And when people listen and go to the south, they are also like being bombed and killed. And so even when it comes from not just the Israeli occupation, the information, but also like many internationals were trying to really like also help, but then it turned out that it wasn't helpful. So people are really like they don't know where to go, whom to trust, whom to listen to. So they cut it short sometimes, and you see things circulating in masses, which are really like after a while, it's all misinformation, and then you have very little to do. So it's a big challenge, I think, on how to regain trust, despite the fact that good organizations are there for fact-checking, and we have them in Palestine.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Franco echoes that as well too in the chat. Trust, big issue. Tricia.
Big thing. We would like to also come back to one question that was posted at the very beginning from Maria Anna Wirtz. She's asking how to identify and also document participants from these communities that are more vulnerable, that are not always present, that are not always visible. And she also said, do they actually feel identified with that type of community? She put it in this way. Would they even want to tick on a box on a form? Maybe we also pass over to Pablo or to Rachel to answer this final question, and we will wrap up.
Sure. It is hard to make people feel completely identified with the work, especially when we work with different ages, different genders, different backgrounds, different cultural identities. So it is difficult to have people really, really, really and fully identify with the work. But we try as hard as we can. And we also do things. We found that something that really works is using examples, using backgrounds, using clothes, using colors, using the things that people are familiar with, and also approaching with the language. The language thing is very difficult, but it's something that we have to keep trying. That is working with the people and making documents and videos and audios in the language that the people speak. That's something that they feel like really works to help them identify with themselves with the project.
Thanks, Pablo. Rachel, would you like to add something?
Yes, in the Namibian context, I think that is why it's so important for us to have as many facilitators in the different regions as possible. The Mili office is in Windhoek, the capital city, so we don't really have offices in the regions that we can monitor and identify these different people with different needs. But I think, through our facilitators locally there, they can identify those with needs and where help is needed. And then we then go and implement the youth projects in those different areas. And I really agree with what Pablo, using the language, using examples that they are familiar with. And I think that is why when we train, we try and give charge to the audience or the participants as much as possible, because they bring out examples that they can relate to. Sometimes we don't have the best examples, but when they start talking, they all start nodding to what the other participant is saying, so to say that they relate to each other. And I think through this, they create a bond and they feel seen through each other and their participation.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I think that's going to bring us to an end. Maybe we could have a look again at the board. So if we could maybe share that.
Definitely, we can have a final
look.
It's
great. It's really nice to see empathy, collaboration in there in the middle. That's really, really nice. Thank you so much. We'll share this with everybody afterwards as well too. So that's all the time we have for the session this afternoon. I would like to really, really thank. It's been lovely working with Dorshawella. Thank you so much, Patricia, and Rosalind, of course, for working with us on the session this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. And I hope that all of the activities that everyone's involved with in Global Mill Week will go well. So thank you to Dorshawella. Have you any final words, Patricia, about your work?
Thank you. Also, follow us on social media to get informed on the next events, on the next trainings. It's been a pleasure for me joining you, Sally, and also Chloe. And thank you mainly for the brilliant audience and the very inspiring speakers we had today.
Indeed. Thank you, Hugo, Hania, Pablo, and Rachel. Really grateful for your help this afternoon. I think we just maybe have one or two last slides just as we close out. We have, first of all, we would just like to remind people that there is a campaign being run by by UNESCO globally for Media and Information Literacy Week. It is the Post with Care campaign. So please look out for it, repost it, reuse the resources, try and share as much as you can around the globe in terms of this campaign, which of course is so important. Post with Care. That's a key campaign going on. We'd also like to highlight a campaign taking place also over the next month, being run by European Schoolnet here in Europe, called Media Smart Online. And this is a campaign which will run, as I said, for a month, and it will essentially brings together people working in safer internet centres. There's lots of resources, again, lots of materials available that if you would like to get involved and would like to follow up further on that campaign, please do, and contact BIK. You can also contact us as well, the Media Learning Association. We've been having a full week of events all this week, and we just have one more to go tomorrow. And that is the one taking place again at 2 o'clock Central European time. We're running it together with our colleagues in the European Digital Media Observatory. It's called Beyond the Hype, Practical Strategies for Successful Influencer Collaborations in Media Literacy. So please, if you haven't signed up yet for the session, you're welcome to join us tomorrow for that as well. And of course, everything will be on our YouTube channel in about 10 days. So we'll be able to have the recordings of all the sessions during the week. And we'll also contact you as registered participants to let you know when it's available and also to share with you the presentations. Thanks, everybody. It's been really, really interesting. And I must say the 4 projects today really certainly make me think a lot about the work that we do and the importance that everyone involved here is doing. So thank you so much for sharing and for being with us. And I hope the rest of your day, wherever you are, goes well. Thank you so much to Chloe as well, who helps put together this session. And without Chloe, we wouldn't all be here today. So thank you, Chloe. And thanks to all of our team as well. Bye-bye now.